Dave, welcome to the donut.
Thank you, Andy. Good to be
Where's
here.
your Where's your instrument? Where's your instrument? Because I know you're a good
Yeah,
musician.
no, I did it. I didn't know that was part of the thing. So I'm actually in my music room and I just got a new trombone, but that seems a little complex for right now.
You got a new trombone?
I just
Oh,
did. And get this, it's 100 years old, this trombone. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. It's,
what?
it's amazing shape too. Yeah.
It's older than all of us
It's
combined,
older than
actually.
all of us, pretty much, yeah. But
Whoa.
yeah, it's in great shape. Yeah, so exciting stuff.
Maybe we can glean more knowledge and wisdom from the instruments, because I feel like I mean, imagine how much wisdom that trombone has.
How much experience? Well, yeah, and that lots of quiet inside the case, right? Maybe who knows, years in an attic of just contemplating existence. Yeah.
Truly, truly, and that kind of brings us to, this conversation where, we're diving into, like the concept and the idea of donut economics and how that is something that might be an ancient idea. It's just getting a new, a branded donut lens.
I love
Um,
that. I love that.
right? But like I'm curious, how like what brings you into the donut economic world and like why do you feel like it's something that can prove valuable?
So, so I think it's interesting. I'm always framing and I'm always studying, which means my orientation is always changing. So I'm reading a book by Margaret Mead right now called Continuities in Cultural Evolution. And it's really interesting. You should say that, like an old idea, because it's like, of course, she was initially famous for her anthropology books on coming of age in Samoa and studying traditional cultures. And then but in this book, she's really addressing the issue we're still addressing, and which is, and she wrote it, it came out in 1963, I think. And she's addressing basically the destruction of human civilization through our own sort of, not dealing with our problems and addressing the issue, which is what really drew me to the book, that she she's talking about how it's never really been done, that we decided intentionally that we were going to change society in certain ways to better ourselves. That
Right.
hasn't really been done. Evolution has happened, but it's sort of happened in this haphazard way. So what she's addressing is, how do we do that intentionally? How do we do that on purpose? So that's really for me, that's my frame right now, is like, how do we do this? How do we know we need to evolve? We know we need to change. I mean, it's some of these things we're talking about, like war and hunger, are things we've been talking about for decades, if not hundreds of years, of how to eliminate these things. And of course, we must be capable of it. You look at what humans beings are capable of. We have to be capable of this. So it's a question of, how do we do that? How do we intentionally say we are going to stop war as a species and do it? So that's why I'm here, because Doughnut Economics provides that kind of framework in which we can say, okay, we can do this. We can do this. We need a new way to think about, whether it's Doughnut Economics or something else. We have a way to think about it. We have a way to imagine that in a really concrete way. That world where every human being born has a thriving human life in a sustainable society. And talking about that globally, which of course is not going to include war. It can't, because that's the most basic human right, is the ability to survive, the ability to live safely and securely, which we enjoy here. I'm grateful every day for it. But it also, it detracts from my life constantly. That's not true for everybody. So
True.
that's the big picture. The little picture is that I want to share, because I think this is a
Mhm.
hard sell to get people involved, to get people on board, is the difference between how I feel when I do this work and I strive to this, and how I feel when I just read the news and don't do anything. And it's really totally different. It's like this totally different thing. It's I want to I don't want to use the word hope because that is kind of an air. It's a ephemeral word. It also, it implies just thinking about it. The fact is that if you go out in the world and you do something to make things better, you believe that it's possible to make things better because you physically are doing something about it. And we're wired that way. When we're doing something about it, it makes us feel like it's possible, and it makes us feel hopeful, feel the emotion of hope. But that's not the point. The point isn't to feel hopeful. The point is to do something to make the world a better place, and to take some of our precious time and our precious resources to do that. And that feeling is indescribably important. It's also very healthy, I think. I mean, it's just, I see what's happening to people, especially like of your generation and younger, of just like, if, it's hopelessness and despair is a terrible thing to live with. It's unhealthy. It's destructive of our joy. So, on a personal level, that's why I'm here, because I want to be full of hope and joy because I'm doing something.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's interesting to think, like, as you're sharing that, I'm thinking about how many folks in your generation have almost slid into cynicism and slid into nihilism. It's fascinating to see it because, I in myself, I'm like, wait, I have a responsibility to the younger generations to make sure they don't go through that kind of, they don't go through the no generation, or the cynicism generation. Like they don't repeat that experience that I have. Yet I do see folks, so I do want to commend you for actually being a steward also of folks in your generation, because you are, and you being an embodied hope and offering actual viable grounded solutions, right? Because I think that Doughnut Economics seems to provide something grounded, rather than just something wishy-washy, right? Or an idea.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that. And, I'm curious, like on that note, like what are some wins that you feel you're getting like in that lens, and you creating this like hope, embodied hope, or this actionable hope perspective? What do you like? Where are the wins? Like, what are you noticing? Like, how is it actually getting people excited or interested in doing something?
Well, I think so. So let me go back to continuities and cultural evolution. Margaret Mead. So what's exciting about that book is she's saying that these kind of evolutionary leaps happen with small groups of committed people. Now, talk about a hopeful framework for us as activists, or for anybody who wants to join this struggle. This is how it happens. She's saying this is how it happens. This is how evolution, technological, social, it happens with small groups of committed people. So, I mean, what a great thing to commit your life to, right? This hope, this evolution, this bringing into existence a new human world. It's amazing. So just as I say, so this is specifically some of the things I'm seeing, and I frame that because one of the things that I'm all up in is that we are in Caltech particularly, but a lot of new thinking around democracy, around deep democracy. So we're using deep democracy to run a nonprofit, to run an organization. And we're having some of the predictable growing pains, but we're also doing it, and we're seeing how much more effective it is to have everybody's voice heard, to do that kind of commitment to everybody's voice heard. So I'm finding that successful because we're proving that it can work. And that, I think that's such an important part of this future world is that kind of democracy, that kind of voice, because what we're seeing now is just these things go on and on and on, these cycles, these systems, the military system, the capitalist systems, the corporate systems, they just go on and on. They're self-perpetuating because there's no place for voice. There's no place for voice for people's voices in there. And so, and there's no structure for that. So we obviously have to create a structure. We have to be very meticulous about it, which is what we're doing. in Caltech because we're creating that kind of democratic structure. So that's one I just want to call out because I think that's kind of invisible and it's huge. On the specific level of what I'm doing in the group, I'm finding a lot of forward momentum in the pilots. We're going out, we're taking Doughnut Economics out, we're finding people in different cities. We're in San Jose and San Diego right now, but we're going to expand that. And I find that incredibly powerful and hopeful. We're going to Zoom rooms and talking to local activists, all kinds of different positions, executive directors of nonprofits, business people, local activists. And we're actually talking to them about the ideas of doughnut economics and how can we bring that into the community in a really concrete way, whether policy-wise or talking to people. At this point, it's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of talking about it, but I find that really promising and moving forward. And what we're finding, of course, and I'm sure you're finding this in your work with Caltech too, is that people are very receptive because of what we talked about before. People want that feeling of, yeah, we can do this. We can work this out. People want that. They really want that. And so we're providing that. We're saying, okay, let's do this. And so I'm finding that very, and in fact, just anecdotally, I find myself energized by the word people keep in the Caltech keep telling me, you're taking on too much. But I'm like, my wife's telling me you're taking on too much, but I'm like, I can't help it. Every time I do something, I get more energy. So it's like I got to do something with all this energy. So, again, a push for do it, get involved, do something with this stuff, and do it with Caltech because we need people. We need you.
Yeah, I love that. And it kind of like triggers in me and understanding that like, hey, a part of us doing this is recognizing that we're in a liminal space, like we have to be honest with ourselves. Like the liminal space means we have to be uncomfortable with not knowing what can happen, what we might end up doing, what are the responses and the new learnings. Because like you said, even doing a nonprofit organization democratically, where is that? Like, there's not many worker-owned nonprofits out there.
No, and the thing is, people have to be able to see it and imagine it. I mean, even me, as I've been doing consensus decision making in activist groups and Quakers and various settings for my entire life. But when we actually took this on, sociocracy, we started, hiring people and budgeting money and doing all that stuff that people think, oh, you got to have an authoritarian person in charge to do that stuff. And we started doing it democratically on a consent basis. I realized how much more effective democracy is. Consent it's not just that it's right or that you hear people's voices. It's more effective because you get the information you need to make the right decisions. And as I said before, in authoritarian structures, which I'm including most corporate structures, including most nonprofits, that's not happening. People don't get the information they need to make the decisions, and so we're stuck. We're stuck in this paradigm. So as you say, and thank you for using that word. That was my vocabulary word this week, liminal. So thanks for using that. I get to practice it. But it's yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there's going to be discomfort there, but there's also um, there's these bold new learnings of the fact that, all of a sudden you see how inefficient authoritarianism is, how inefficient one person making decisions based on limited information is. It's inefficient, it's ineffective. Democracy is so much more effective. And the model we're using, sociocracy, is so well designed to address the issues that people get bogged down in this. It's just really, there is a lot to learn about how to do it, but it works and it's extremely effective.
Yeah, and it's also a reminder too that things also change and evolve, but people need to learn how to be an engaged citizen too, right? Because that's something we really haven't practiced as most, especially American adults, don't really know what it means to be an engaged citizen.
No, it's funny, right? In our culture, because we have this individualism thing, and a lot of that, what's coded in that is that we get, I get to live my own life and not worry about anybody else. But that's not real. I mean, not only biologically are we social creatures, but in fact, we all depend on each other. There's nobody is self-sufficient anymore in our culture, our society, our economy. We all depend on each other. But biologically, we're healthier when we're embedded in communities. The whole blue zone research, that's one of the things that goes across all of it. I'm not going to plug diet or exercise here, but plug community. People always are embedded in a strong community, and it's healthy. It's good for us because that's the way we're built. We're built to be social creatures. So this whole thing of individuality and stuff is not only kind of a lie, but it's also not even ideal or healthy. But it just holds on and holds on, right? That idea that we don't have to be involved in government. The government's bad. Instead of government being the expression of who we are as a people, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's especially because I have spent the past few years getting involved in local government much more than national, and just watching like how low of engagement there is, and also like the quality of people who show up at a local city hall meetings or the committee meetings. You're not really, I mean, it's not, it's a very small percentage of that are artists, are spiritualists, are like, I mean, I don't know. I could like I go in many different directions. Creatives, cultural creatives, right? Like engineers. Like you're not really getting that kind of person going to these meetings.
No, and yeah, no, I think we really need that education. It's funny you mentioned that though, because it's really, yeah. I had a lot of learning in local government, and of course, it's one of the things with CalDEC. It's California wide, so I sort of, because I used to work with a local group, and but it's astounding. I mean, we stopped the drive-through simply because we brought 40 people to two meetings. I mean, I'm proud of it because it was a mobilization effort, and we did it. And the design was really effective because I got people to commit to come to these meetings once a month, and said, you can do once a month for an hour. And so people wanted to be able to do something, but they didn't want to make these huge commitments. But the point being for that discussion is, 40 people packed that place. It was all Napa Climate Now buttons everywhere you looked, and it was like, yeah, we won. I mean, it was a hard win too. It was like it was an appeal of something that had already been basically approved, and so it's yeah, what you say is really true. I mean, you can have an impact, but that whole idea of democracy is that local government is the place you can see it, because we can just walk into those rooms and sit in the audience and participate. We can go up and in California anyway, get our 3 minutes and
Right.
participate in the process.
Well, in the town I'm in, they don't even have a 3 minute counter. You could just like start talking and talk like whatever, and because it's so small. And I
That's
think this
awesome.
the smaller circle, the smaller donut you're involved in, the more intimate and the more your opinion can matter, right? And I feel like going back to like donut economics and like what this project is envisioning is kind of also allowing people to have a more power and a voice at the table, right? And I think for so long that people have felt like they can't collaborate with their policymakers, they can't make a difference in their community, but they can. We all can. We just need a language, right, that supports it.
We need a language, and I think I mean, it's interesting you bring that up, because we're talking a lot about democratic structure here, and there's a lot of other things we can talk about in terms of using the structure we have to start making actual policy changes, like walkable, bikeable cities, like, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, recycling, composting, but that it's the interesting thing about Doughnut Economics, is that Kate Rayworth on purpose sort of leaves it as a co-creation space, says, here's a structure to think about this, and here's all these different elements to think about it. Think about people and how how you structure things is going to determine how people are going to behave. You know, how you structure things. If you structure things that people need to care about each other and relate to each other and have democracy, then you're going to have that. If you structure it so that people can go on with their lives without ever paying any attention and not even voting, then people are going to do that. You know, it's all, you know, talking about democracy, talking about bags. You know, we in Napa County we did a bag ordinance. It was awesome because it was the whole thing of education, the transition, the policy, the nudge. It wasn't like you couldn't get a bag. It was
Right.
like you had to pay 10 cents for it. So just the nudge, all the stuff Kate talks about in a broad way, we can bring in and co-create all kinds of different policies, structures, organizations around those ideas. And that's just one of them. The other thing is thinking in terms of systems, all the stuff she brings up
Yeah.
provides us with this model to go in and and this is the thing, make real change. Make real change. That's one of the things Margaret Mead points out in this book. Sorry to keep coming back to that, but it's interesting. Um, um, she points out is that if we you have this core of people, committed individuals who devise something that really works. What happens often is that diffuses out and becomes something ineffective because, especially in terms of change, because people just take the pieces of it that are easy or that are convenient for them or that they want. And that's what Doughnut Economics does for us. Is it gives us a discipline in a way, a structure in which to say we have, this is our goal, this is our focus, and we need to create ideas within this framework. And then those ideas become a living thing within our community, within our society. And I think that needs to happen. And that's why I just talked myself into another talking point about the pilot cities model we're using. We're going into cities because it's like, when you think about that, that's really how it should be done. We should go to places and start things so that it grows organically where it is. And it's going to be much more effective and powerful because it's going to be appropriate to that community. It's going to be a whole instead of just taking pieces. And then we can cross seed ideas, right? From community to community.
Yeah, and some of the communities might need to call it mochi economics because
Exactly.
I think especially with the younger generations, they're going to be more interested in the mochi than the donut.
Yeah, well, and who can blame them? I mean, donuts are not good for you. You make them gluten-free, right? But it's still trans fats, sugar.
But that's a good point too. I mean, I've noticed when when I have gone to, climate related events where it's mostly Gen Z, mostly like, younger millennials and Gen Zers, a lot of them influencers, right, in the climate space, in the green movement. Some of them have never heard of donut economics. If they have heard of it, they're like been very superficial. And at the same time, when I do engage with them with the language of donut economics, they're lit up. They're like, oh wait, this is how I might be able to engage with the policymakers. Like it's like right now there isn't that language for the activists who are frustrated about climate or frustrated about the inactivity, right? Or the blocks with getting things done. Like here's basically a language that can help them.
A language and a lens and and a framework. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And talking about donut economics in terms of, the specific power of it. I mean, that's a part of the power of it. It's taking us past that language. I mean, even, again, like she wrote a whole chapter about agnostic about growth, right? Let's stop talking about that.
Yeah.
That's theoretical. Let's start talking about real things, and let's not be obsessed with growth because
Right.
we have to live in a on a planet that is not infinite. So we can't grow forever in the way we think of it. We can't just keep using resources and using space and polluting the air, and we can't do that indefinitely. But we can start talking about thriving human lives and
Yeah.
sustainability in a thriving nature. We can start talking about that instead of growth. And then we
Yeah.
can get away and we can start talking about democracy, deep democracy, instead of authoritarianism or communism versus, you
Right.
know, capitalist democracy. I mean, it takes us past a lot of those conversations, I think, what's what makes it very powerful. And I mean, I must confess, I would like to leverage that more when I talk about it, you know, in more subtle ways, not say it explicitly, but, you know, leverage those ideas because they're very powerful. We need to get past those conversations to the real, the existential conversations at this point, at least for our civilization, you know, and for the
Exactly.
group of people, you know, it's like, it's not the place to get into the fact that I'm a Armageddon junkie. I like watch all the shows and read all the books at the fall. I think it's, I don't know why. I don't even know why, but it does occur to me that we're always one of the survivors, and you know, that's not going to happen in a real one. You know,
No.
the human costs of that are going to be enormous, and I think we you know, it doesn't impact us. I mean,
Yeah.
Don't Look Up was probably the closest to that, where it just, we had a pretty good boom, it's over, you know. It's like, I don't know if you saw that, but it's like,
Yeah, yeah, it was good. Oh, I mean, I also feel like, I mean, there's two sides of this. I can't help but like always like the Jungian side of things, right? To like look at the shadow and not be afraid of it. And when you look deep enough at the shadow and the darkness, you start to be like, oh yeah, you can see how people would want to use media and propaganda, films and TV, and like people are on there, they're watching things. Guaranteed, people are going to watch stuff, right,
yeah,
on these channels. So if you propagate fictional realities that like suggest this is possible, people then are a little bit more anesthetized for it to happen, right? And it's like this is not a new thing. I mean, even the Germans were using this in the 40s and the 30s. They literally used in the 30s to build up the momentum to do what they did in the 40s. And so we need to recognize that was 100, that was 80 years ago. Like, you don't think, haven't people gotten better at propaganda, like you think it went away? And so for us to reckon that actually it's so important and vital for us to start sharing protopian imagination, like imagination of like what would a city look like with donut
yes,
economics? What would
yes,
it like happen? What would your city look like? And for people to practice that civic imagination that's relevant to them, not a fearful one that's relevant. We don't want number one. Like we don't want those
right.
Armageddon situations, number one, but they're enticing because we love horror. But like, so it's like, okay, get the horror. Now let's also create the, protopian story, right? For our
Yeah, yeah,
community.
yeah, yeah. We don't need to talk about why that's so fascinating. Death and destruction.
I just,
Yeah,
I just,
no,
I,
I think that's an awesome idea. You know, what comes to mind is like, I keep thinking, oh, I want to have a block party because you know, that's part of our dystopian world we're
right,
living in, is we often don't know our neighbors, you know, and you know, it's so, and how anxiety provoking that is for me when I think about, you know, I have some Trumpian neighbors and stuff. Like, I have, you know, diverse little block here. Like, what would that look like? What would we do? We didn't have anything to talk to each other about, you know. But what you're suggesting is that it'd be nice to have a vision of that, and then it would be worth pushing for, you know, a vision of what, you know, watering each other's gardens, you know, just, you know, really genuinely having genuine conversations with your neighbors when you run into them, you know.
right,
Maybe even having a weekly thing where people just gather and
right.
play croquet, you know, or play musical instruments, do some that. But you know, it's like, yeah, so I love that. I love that. What that would look like, what that would feel like. And going
Right.
back to the health benefits of that, you
Yep,
know,
yep,
feeling
exactly.
connected to the people around you. You know, how it's huge. It's huge. And that's really the world we're talking about, because we're talking about not only democracy on the level of decision making and trying to be involved in decision making in our communities, but democracy on the level of being connected too.
Right.
with each other and feeling like we're part of a community and part of the same body.
Exactly. Yeah, it's critical. I mean, it's a part of it. It's a part of the journey. So, well, I'm grateful for this, this dive in. I don't think this is the last one. I feel, we should continue having these conversations, maybe bringing people on, in the future, Dave, too. If you ever want to bring somebody on, then we can kind of have a donut discussion
Great.
about, San Diego, if there's a community out, that you're engaging with, that we can have them come and share how they're thinking about donut economics for their, we can always bring people on. How do you feel about that?
That'd be awesome. Yeah, no, so I'll put yeah, this is new for me, so I'll put some thought into it. And yeah, no, this would be awesome. Just as far as if this is going to be like an ongoing thing, just that we figure out how to bring in maybe more specific, like a more specific topic. Like it could be San Diego, or it could be sociocracy, or it could be an important idea out of the book, out of the Doughnut Economics book, that we want to talk about. So that'd be awesome. I'd be really into that.
Exactly. Different ideas. I mean, I even hope that we can start even engaging with like policymakers and have them come on and we could kind of explain and also invite them, to explore it with us, right? The protopian vision for their community.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Lots of
So
potential here. And as you
I
said,
don't I think a council member or a senator or whatever will love the extra publicity. You know how they are. So anything where they get, honored. So as long as we, make them feel good about it.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay.
Um,
Thanks
well,
for doing that.
thanks a lot, Dave. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Do you feel complete? Anything else you want to share?
No, no. I love the idea that we can do another chapter too.
Yeah.